All right, 6:30. How's everybody doing this morning? Excellent. Friday, we're back in the swing of things. Hope everybody had a good Thanksgiving break last week. So we had a good week so far. Let's just continue that. So this week's code of conduct is to remain confidentiality of insider information learned about ECN and our clients. Again, it's very important that we kind of know our audience, know who we're talking to. Think about what you're going to say in the environment that you're in. If you think you should not be saying something, probably best not to say it at all. We do learn some pretty cool things here at Engineers Construction, especially when we're working at VTrans or the Air Guard, the airport, stuff like that. And I know Ken's brought this up a couple times before. He actually has to sign off a waiver, I believe, of inside information stuff.
Yeah, it's just not really a waiver, but it's a commitment.
A commitment.
A written commitment to not to give out the information.
Yeah.
At a corporate level.
At a corporate level, yeah. So it's something to think about. It's an important part of what we do. So some safety news. In another 2 weeks, we didn't meet last week, so we're up to 62 days without a recordable injury. We're trending in the right direction. Again, like I said, we're at the fourth quarter of the year, the last month of the year. Different changing conditions now, slip, trips, and falls. We're going to have icy situations, snow, vehicle incidents will definitely be on the rise because of the snow on the road. So again, just really stay alert and try to eliminate those hazards, eliminate those slip hazards, anything you can fix for means of egress. So in 2017, we're at 145 was our record, and we're trending in that direction. We'll have flu shots offered today. Alberta will be your main point of contact when the person gets here. They'll be here for about an hour. Is that correct?
7 to 9.
7 to 9, so 2 hours. So if you have somewhere you got to go and come back, we'll just be in this overflow or our little computer lab training office down there. That's where she'll be located today. So with that said, I'm going to pass it off to Ben McKinney, and he's going to start a little series on railroad safety. Especially this time of year, it's good to kind of talk about because we're going to be snow removal on the rail, plus a lot of railroad projects moving forward. So Ben, thank you for presenting, and I'll pass it on to you.
How you guys doing this morning? So one of the reasons we wanted to do a series on railroad safety is because even though there's a few crews that do almost all their work on the railroad, nearly all our crews cross paths with it here or there. Truck drivers, we do a lot of paving on the railroad, we do a lot of trenchless underneath the railroad, and we do a lot of just general civil work, drainage, slope jobs on and around it, and also maintenance of our equipment that might be on those jobs. Today is just part one, and we're going to talk about on-track safety, otherwise known as track protection. So fouling the track. What is fouling the track? Fouling the track is when you or a machine or a vehicle or any material is within 4 feet of the nearest running rail. So you're required to have on-track safety or track protection before you foul the track. It's any condition in which you or your machine or material could interfere with the train movement or be struck by a moving train or maintenance equipment. The rules state that workers must verify that a method of on-track safety is in place prior to fouling the track. So know before you go. Don't just roll up to railroad tracks. You got to verify that there is on-track safety or somebody has track protection before you foul. What is on-track safety? You need to have this before you foul, but what is it? The definition in G-Corps, which is the General Code of Operating Rules, is, quote, a state of freedom from danger of being struck by a moving train or other railroad equipment provided by safety rules that govern track occupancy. So track protection is usually a procedure, paperwork, that is often usually coordinated between a flagman and the railroad dispatcher who's in control of train movements, protecting you over a certain area from trains so that you can do work on the property and on the tracks safely. So why do we need on-track safety? There's a lot of rules around the railroad industry and around track and occupying the railroad. Why is this important? The reason is trains can't turn. They take a really long time to stop. And when something happens, it's really bad. So unlike a highway, which is designed so that you can stop short of anything that you might hit before you hit it, that's not the way railroads are designed. They can't be designed like that. This is a first-person dash cam, basically. This is what the conductor might see going around a curve. In this case, there's a work crew just down the tracks. He's not going real fast, maybe around 30. And so he's sounding his whistle. The work crew probably knows he's there and coming. He doesn't see him till right now. He hits the brakes. It's too late. Tags a loader. Not that bad. Loader man could have broke his neck. It's hard to say. We don't know. But it can certainly be a lot worse than that. That's that's what the train sees. It's probably not the train that's gonna be the most effective when we're not using if something happens. Here's the other side of things. Here's a low bed with a crane on it stuck on a crossing. Obviously a lot more severe on the receiving end. So it's really important on track safety. So before we foul the track, we need to make sure that somebody has track protection. How does that take place? That's the railroad flagger, or the EIC, which stands for employee in charge. That's the person that's going to provide on-track safety or track protection for us. The EIC is usually always a person qualified by the railroad. They're usually a railroad employee. On the New England Central Railroad, we have certain employees at ECI that are qualified flagmen to get track. But on all other railroads, this is going to be a railroad employee. And the way that we're going to determine whether we have on-track safety and what the specifics are is going to be through a job briefing. So this is something that's going to happen every shift, at the beginning of every shift. When you do your tailboard, the EIC should be and will be included, and you're going to determine, he's going to tell you what he has for track, what the limits of the track are, the specifics, if it's if it's a Form B, what the time limits are. And those are all really important things to know. You're actually required to keep track of this information. So it may just seem like numbers. Yeah, LYN 55, milepost 38 to 40, do not foul limits ahead of 661. Well, that's fine, right? It's just a bunch of numbers. Well, yeah, but you need to know that. You are required to know that. An FRA inspector can ask anybody at any time what track protection you have, what the limits are. So these briefings are very important, and they're very important to take information away from it. The best way to do it is to actually have it written and put it in your pocket. On the G&W roads, we often see really proactive flagmen making copies of their track protection and giving it out. That's awesome. We don't usually see that on Vermont Rail System. So I think a great way to do it is to have a job briefing form. Everybody can fill it out. We've got hundreds of these. I've got them in my office. I'll give them to you. And then that way, just during tailboard, you can write down your track warrant number and your limits. It's a great way for you to keep track of it. And if you have to reiterate it to an inspector, you can do so. The job briefings, not only are they going to happen at the beginning of the shift, but they need to happen when conditions change, or if somebody else comes onto the job. Maybe you missed tailboard because you're at the shop getting material. It's really important that you get a job briefing. So after tailboard, the job briefings aren't done. Conditions might change. We might be giving up track. Somebody else might come onto the site. We might have a new truck come in the mix. Again, you see your buddies on the track. That doesn't mean that you're good. You need to have a job briefing. Absolutely, 100%. You need to get in touch with the employee in charge and get a job briefing before you foul the tracks, even if other people in your work crew are already fouling. What are we going to discuss? Method of track protection, the limits, provisions for adjacent track safety. If we've got a siding, how we protect it on the siding. The track warrant might apply to a mainline track, but we might have a different method of track protection on siding. And other normal tailboard topics, designated 911 callers, things like that. So the most important briefing probably isn't that one at the beginning of the day where you learn what your method of track protection is. It's probably when you clear up. That's the most important briefing. Everybody might be there at tailboard and know that we've got a track warrant, and that's fine. But the big potential is when we give up track and we no longer have track protection, we can't be on the tracks. And that's the most important briefing, especially for people that might not be there. So if the flagman calls the foreman, we got to clear up, train coming, okay, clear up, everybody's in the clear, foreman calls back, yep, we're in the clear, good, go ahead, give it up. That's good. But anybody that comes on after that point that may have been on the tracks all day, absolutely 100% needs to be aware of the fact that we no longer have track. This is no longer safe. We cannot drive trucks across it. We cannot walk across it. Stay away. And the best way to do that is have a designated person be there at the work area on the tracks and in control of it. That should be the flagman. That can be tough in situations like we've had all summer down in Addison County. We've had really spread out jobs and several jobs under the control of one EIC. The foreman, our foreman, needs to designate a person, if we can't have it be the flagman, to be there at the tracks and making sure that nobody comes in or out until the train passes and we have track protection established again. Methods of track protection, for the most part, we're going to use exclusive track occupancy. You guys have probably heard of track warrants. Track and time is similar. It's just used in CTC territory. A Form B, we've been using, the VTR has been using Form Bs a lot, similar to a track warrant, except the flagman's got direct communication with the train. There's other forms of track protection that you probably won't see and probably don't need to know as much about for different situations. This is an example of a track warrant form. Track out of service is another method of track control that you might see, especially on a shutdown for an extended period. If you're going to take the track out of service, you actually take it out of service with a dispatcher, and that's an appropriate way to do it. So there's gray area when it comes to fouling the track. You know, we learned that if you're within 4 feet of the nearest running rail, you are in the foul and you absolutely need track protection. That's fine. If you have the ability to foul the track, you should consider that fouling. The 210 in this picture isn't fouling. Neither is the track truck. Neither is, I think that's Scott. But the 210 could. The 210 could easily foul. He's got a swing to the left and he's fouling the main. This is on the NECR. They're rolling into Brattleboro, so they're not going really fast, but right up the tracks, they're going very fast. So if you have the ability to foul, or really any time you're working on railroad property, just assume that you're going to need to have a form of track protection or on-track safety and get in touch with a flagman. Or if you don't have a flagman, you should be talking to your supervisor and say, okay, do we have track, or can we even be there? Is this safe? Close clearance should be considered too. Just because you're 4 feet away and you may not be technically fouling, that doesn't mean you can park your machine 4 feet off the track. That would still create a close clearance situation. When you're done for the day, you need to think about material. A good rule of thumb is bare minimum. Any material or equipment that's above the top of rail height needs to be at least 6'6" from the nearest running rail, 8'6" from track center. That is the bare minimum. The further the better. Additional considerations, even if you have on-track safety, you've got a good briefing, you know where you're at, you need to expect movements from trains in any direction at any time. It can happen. We had 2 close calls last summer. Neither of them were our faults, but one was very close and very scary. It can happen. Track speed can change at any time. A lot of us get used to working in certain places on the VTR with 10-mile-per-hour track. And that's not that scary. A lot of times they can stop short if they needed to. Maybe a big freight, but maybe a light engine could stop short at 10, especially on tangent track. There's track speeds all over the place in the VTR. We're often working in areas that are compromised. They might put slow orders because we're there, and they can change those without notice. They don't need to tell you that they changed the track speed. We've seen it on the VTR this year. We've seen slow orders get lifted without letting us know, and all of a sudden our 10-mile-per-hour trains went to 25, which is a huge difference. We've also seen rail upgrades this year on our projects in Addison County, which raised the track speed as high as 40. So you're talking a huge difference in your ability to clear for a train. Be vigilant, watch out for each other, and that's it. On a final note, we lost Obi this week. Obi was Phil's dog. If you ever worked with Phil or on his jobs, you might recognize him. Obi had a quick fast acting cancer, and I think Phil put him down on Monday. So we're gonna miss Obi. That's all I got.
Questions?
Yeah, I have a question about if you're going to need track protection. Who would you contact? Would you call the office?
So if you're,
To find out
in your
what
situation,
wider?
yeah, if you're going out to maybe work on a machine or go to a job site, the best thing to do would be to call the supervisor of that job. If not, you can feel free to call me. You can call Ron.
Because there used to be Gene, but
Right. Yeah, you can call Gene too, but you can call Gene, myself, or Ron. But the first call should be the supervisor on that
How
site.
would you come up with your mile marker? Just give them your location.
You don't necessarily, if you just tell them the location, they should be able to tell you very quickly if you're protected, if you're in the limits or not. You shouldn't be responsible for determining your location. If you say I'm going to this job site in this general area, they should know very quickly whether you are protected or not. And then before you go, you should still talk to the flag.
Right. I always check in and check out. At least give a wave like I'm out of here type of, so they know, because it's also very stressful if there is a train coming, they have to get everyone off the track, and it can't account for people who might already have left because they forgot. Okay, thanks, Ben. Important stuff. So for corporate announcements, our advisor for the 401k will be here at ECI on the 8th. That's a week from today, so any current enrollees would like to get an appointment, let Sarah know. Open enrollment for healthcare is January 1st, so deductions are always in advance of the coverage period, so you have to let Sarah know so she can start taking deductions out of your paycheck. And let's say, please check your 11/17 paycheck for 2018 rates. Those are the new rates. Yes, that's what that means. Plan specifications can be picked up at the front office. Flu shots today, so roll up your sleeves. Alberta has forms to fill out if you're doing it, so make sure you grab them before you get in line. So this week for technical tips, we're talking about measuring devices still, and we're talking specifically about spirit levels. So the spirit level is a kind of hand level that contains a bubble for leveling. And common spirit levels are the carpenter's level, the torpedo level, and the bullseye level. And the reason it's called spirit level is because there's like an alcohol inside, a little spirit inside, in the vial, because it doesn't freeze, basically. So, otherwise if we're water, we'd be throwing out our levels every time they get exposed to freezing. So most a spirit level is used to verify that a surface is level or plumb, meaning vertical surface. And most carpenter levels also have a 45-degree bubble, so we can check that. And we use them very frequently in the shop and in the field. And there's a few things to know, mostly pretty obvious, but let's go through them. The pitch on a pipe is easy to calculate with, say, a 24-inch carpenter's level. If you have, say, a 1/4 inch per foot, then if you take your 2-foot level, it's 2 times that 1/4 inch, or 1/2 of an inch of deviation from that level when your level is level relative to the pipe. So quick and easy check on pipe pitches and slopes. Torpedo levels are often made with a magnetic surface. Kind of nice. Just stick them on your material, either hang them or even resting on the top. They secure much nicer to metal, obviously, with a magnet. And you can check your level by flipping it 180 degrees on the same surface, and you should get, if you were level to start with on one orientation, you flip it around, you should be perfectly level on the other direction. If not, there's a problem. They obviously could get bent, or kind of maybe the vial of the bubble vial has been kind of loosened up. So accuracy of a quality carpenter's level is typically considered 0.75 millimeters per meter. You can convert that to a percent, and it's about 1/10 of a percent. So it's pretty good. Digital carpenter levels are used to can indicate the pitch, the slope in percent, or any kind of readout you want. And the paving crew, as Daryl's doing right here, has one of these digital levels, and he's making sure that he's getting a proper pitch away from the center of the road towards the shoulder. And a line level is sometimes used, as I'm sure maybe a lot of you guys have used it or seen them anyway. it's a little bubble that hangs from a string and taut string across an area where you might be laying bricks or other masonry work. And then the glass files on a lot of these are replaceable. So if you do have a broken glass file, a lot of the more higher quality manufacturers have replaceable vials, snap right out and snap new ones in. So for projects, we're highlighting the water system remedial expansion, contract number 2 in Bennington. So we're contracted with a Belden company to install 400 feet of 10-inch diameter PE pipe. That's a DRS size, and that's a water line by HDD or horizontal directional drilling methods. And the basics are that it's the Walloomsac River, if I pronounce that right. The engineer for the project is MSK, and we assisted with the bore profile design. And this is one of 4 contracts underway to address the PFOA contamination in the Bennington area. And work was performed with our Ditch Witch 100 AT, so all-terrain, the dual rod system. And ground conditions were mixed and then mostly into rock. Once we were into rock, it was a soft, shaly rock. And there's the reamer, and it looks like they have a sleeve over the end of the pipe. And there's the 100 going in. Obviously, the river is in the forefront that you can't see. And then here, this is after their first ream, I believe, or the final ream before pulling the product pipe. And then just a little bit about the project. The purpose of the project is to provide municipal water to about 200 Bennington and North Bennington homes that are within this PFOA contamination zones at 2 areas. And the PFOA is a perfluorooctanic acid, if I pronounce that right. It's a widely used chemical throughout use in a variety of industries, including, not necessarily from this, I think some of the local manufacturers did use it for this, but some of them are even for cooking surfaces like Teflon and that kind of stuff. And food packaging even has it. So like potato chips, that funny, plastic apparently has it in there. So it's everywhere, and it's a toxin and carcinogen, and is very persistent, meaning that it doesn't break down in the environment. So it's a pretty significant contaminant, and ever since this Bennington thing came up, they've been testing it all over the place and finding, oh yeah, well, it really is here and there. So the project is funded by the St. Gobain Performance Plastics. They were the last owners of the factory that manufactured it. They acquired the facility from ChemFab. They were in North Bennington. The facility was closed back in 2002. When it was open, the plant made coated fabrics for use in a range of industrial applications, including aerospace, automotive, electronics industries, and among others. And those processes used the PFOAs. And there's a link to some of the Vermont DEC website pages here describing the whole thing. But the purpose here again is just to provide a distribution line or a transmission line underneath the river to distribute throughout a new community in Bennington.
Does everybody have wells?
They were all on wells, right? So now they're converting over to municipal water. So for the project photo archives, we're looking at the GMP. It's now the GMP Bay Street sub. When we did this work, it was a CVPS. This is over in St. Johnsbury. We're putting in some kind of switchgear foundations, and this is down on Bay Street or Bay Road, maybe. It's that area down below Allen Lumber. You go under the tracks and from the center of St. Johnsbury to the east side, right in that area where the railroad is, you'll find the substation. So we got. Okay. Have a good day out there. See you. Ben, you got that?
Let's see who I have. Jesse Littlefield.